reporting on the games you love by people who love to game. The MMO Reporter Network.
You're logging into your favorite game, grinding out some gear. A couple of points added to your stats, and you have a virtual beer. Max level is pretty cool, but I'll remind you here, my friend. These games are not about the goal, it's about the journey and not the end.
You're listening to MMO Reporter, brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at audibletrial.com/MMO Reporter. And by Doghouse Systems. Choose your weapon with Doghouse Systems.
Don't forget about your ults you need to cherish. Each and every little character you've got, no matter what level they're at. Don't forget about your ults you need to cherish. Each and every...
My name is Scott Shicoff. I'm the lead designer on Neverwinter. Previously, I was the lead on getting Neverwinter on the Xbox, both in China and then rest of the world. And prior to that at Cryptic, I built things like Sword Coast Adventures for Neverwinter, and was before that was content lead on Star Trek Online for a number of years.
Hi, Scott. It is absolutely fantastic to have you on the show. Thanks for taking some time away from developing the new content for Neverwinter.
Yeah, my pleasure. Glad to be here.
So you've got some new stuff coming on. I mean, there's been a lot that's been happening. I know that I chatted at PAX with, oh gosh, now I'm trying to remember, Rob Overmeyer, and we chatted about all the stuff that came out with Xbox, that big bundle of content that came out for that platform. But now you've got some new stuff coming down the pipe, coming out for PC first, I believe the announcement said, featuring Underdark. Now, this is pretty exciting because Underdark is so far, at least in the video game context, a somewhat unexplored setting for video games.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you mentioned unexplored, and that's actually one of the really big things that WotC wants to do with the Underdark. I mean, right now when you think of that location, you think of Menzo Berenzin, but the reality is the Underdark is a massive place. Anything under the crust, I mean, it's so wildly unexplored. When we were talking to Wizards, they were saying things like, you know, whole civilizations have risen and fallen that players have no idea about. They're just lost in time. Also, the whole place is just permeating with the Affairs Res, that magical energy that just coats the Underdark. So we thought it was really cool to give players new things to experience, new things to see down there that they've never been aware of.
And you brought up Wizards of the Coast. So I'm going to start there, I think. One of the things that I've really noticed with all of the different content that's coming out, both for pen and paper and novelizations and electronic as well, there is now something that we haven't seen, you know, years and years ago with Dungeons and Dragons, where there is a cohesive direction with all of the content that's out there. That must be quite exciting from your end of things, because you've got a great game going on, but you're now part of something so much bigger than just your game.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, it's a lot of fun, because being involved in anything like as just iconic as Dungeons and Dragons in any form is a huge thrill for me. But being able to be tied into the active current world is great. I mean, we work with Wizards. We have calls with them every week. We are tied directly into what they're building. They know what we're building, and it's very collaborative. And the really cool thing, so I personally play games of all kinds, right? Board games, card games, tabletop, pen and paper, minis, video games. I mean, I'm a gamer. And it's super cool when you have the ability to go play pen and paper module with the idea that you've played it on the table, now go play it on the computer.
Right.
It's really fun. It really ties it in.
And to see, you know, I was at PAX this year. I went to Acquisitions Inc., of course. For those of you who are listening who haven't seen the videos of Acquisitions Inc., you need to go watch it right now. I give you permission to pause this interview, go watch that, and then come back here. But to see that, and that was all, you know, Underdark themed. And then we got to talk to the guys who are doing Sword Coast Legends, and there was some Underdark, you know, we were talking about DLC for them. And now the announcement from you guys, it's going to be a lot of fun. Now, can you give us a little bit of an overview of what players could expect as they go into this new expansion?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the really cool things we got to do with this module is we have a whole quest line, a whole series of quests written by R.A. Salvatore, where players are going to get to interact with people they've read about for the last 28 years, characters like Dritz and Brunor, Regis, Pwent. If you're a fan of the D&D lore, and certainly a fan of Salvatore stuff, it's going to be really cool to interact with these characters and go on quests with them. We are doing an overhaul to the Tourmaline Trade Bar store, which if you when you open a lockbox, you get trade bars, and it's supposed to feel good, like, oh, I got this extra thing, and I can have access to this whole other list of prizes. And the reality is we haven't updated it in a while, and so it's getting a big pass, so people are going to have some cool stuff to pick up there. We're introducing a new Underdark-themed campaign within this module, where you're going to have, you know, there's new rewards you can work towards, new boons and equipment, and then the campaign is all tied into the demonic, all the demonic content that we're building. So we have these cool scaling demonic heroic encounters. So based on the number of players who are in the area participating in the heroic encounter, that will dictate challenge and rewards. We've got some really cool skirmishes against demons that have variation in play and variable scoring based on how well you do. And we've got a large group battle against Demogorgon. So that'll be really cool. You and 9 other players get together, fight Demogorgon. And again, variation in play, variable rewards based on how you do. So as you get better gear, as you get better at the content, we're going to reward you for it. Players are going to get to check out. There's a place called Mantle Dareth in the Underdark, which is almost like a neutral trading bazaar, a secret hub where Drow and Urgar and Mind Flayers and all these disparate races get together and trade in sort of secret safety. And players are going to get to go on the outskirts of that and hang out with, you know, Dritz and Brunor, guys like that. As I mentioned, new rewards and boons. And we're continuing to expand strongholds. So we're opening up a new plot location in the stronghold map, and we're introducing a new PvP structure that's Underdark themed.
Wow. Now, I want to go back. You mentioned the quest line with R.A. Salvatore. Now, did you happen, I don't know what your role was on the game back at PAX East a few years ago when R.A. Salvatore was at the Neverwinter party. And I just wanted to mention to our listeners how interesting it was to see R.A. Salvatore talking to fans, and it was like story time in kindergarten as he was sitting in this big oversized chair, and these, you know, grown men and women were sitting, many cross-legged on the floor in front of him as he told stories of both, you know, his writing and all that sort of stuff. So he's a really fascinating character. That must have been very interesting to be able to work with him to create these storylines.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, it's funny you mentioned that story time. He was in the studio like a week or two ago from now, and he was in, and we were showing him, you know, his quest line, showing him what the stuff that he had written, what it actually looked like in game and what it played like, and he would see something and he'd like, oh, that's just like this, and he would spark a thing, and he would go into story time mode, and he would start telling us about, you know, because he's been writing these characters for 28 years now.
Right.
That's a really long time, and obviously there's a lot there that people really identify with. And we had a lot of people in the studio, whether they're on Neverwinter or not, coming and hanging out and just listening to him tell these stories. So that experience, I think that's a pretty normal thing. I think that happens a lot. He's a really fascinating storyteller.
And he's such a down-to-earth guy, but still, even that being said, he's a really nice guy, but he had such a personality, such a big presence. I got one of the books from launch that went with the storyline, and I was just too shy to go up and get him to sign it because he just had that much presence in the room.
No, you should have done it.
I know.
Really,
you know what? 2020 hindsight, right?
That's right. Next time.
Exactly. So we've got these new quests, which is going to be exciting. Let's talk a little bit about the skirmishes, because I think that's one of the way in which Neverwinter does the skirmishes and the dungeon content is probably one of the best ways of doing a queuing system that I've seen in any games. It's so unobtrusive, but the skirmishes are there for those quick bits of battle if you're looking for some instance content, some group content that's not necessarily this hour-long adventure. So can you tell us a little bit more about these demonic encounters that we'll be facing?
Yeah, so aside from the demon theme, right, because I don't know if you've looked into the abyss, or I'm sorry, out of the abyss much, but one of the things is that demons are running amok in the Underdark. And so we wanted to really make sure that was a thing. Players were fighting demons and experiencing that down there. But one of the things that I wanted to do with the skirmishes and with Demogorgon is the idea of you're gonna, this is endgame stuff, right? You're gonna play this stuff a bunch. You're gonna want to get your rewards. You want to play it over and over. And the last thing that you want in content that you have to play repeatedly is to know it just by rote. If you can close your eyes and just play it by muscle memory, you're going to get bored. And so we wanted to get variation in there so that whenever the battle starts, you need to assess the situation, make decisions, and then act smartly to get the best rewards. And again, you could eventually probably just play it, but if you're not really engaging and not really paying attention to what's going on, you're not going to get the best rewards. And so by requiring a level of engagement, I think players are going to have fun with it for longer.
That sounds like a lot of fun. That's one of my favorite things to do in game. Being a parent and being a gamer, not always having as much time as I'd like to game, being able to jump into skirmishes is something that I really like to do. And you also mentioned, I know I'm going to mispronounce this, Mantle Dareth, I think you said?
Oh, Mantle Dareth.
Mantle Dareth. There you go. See, I told you I was going to mispronounce it. So now, how much of a hub is this looking to be? Are we looking to, be the new high-level hub? No need to go back to Protector's Enclave or any other hub in the game?
No, I don't want to do that. Protector's Enclave is the big place where players hang out and they chat and they do what they do. Mantle Dareth is a place that higher-level players will go from time to time when they want to get together and go fight Demogorgon. So similar, when we did Rise of Tiamat, players would hang out in, the Well of Dragons, and Tiamat's coming, and then we're going to go fight. Demogorgon's similar. It's not always available. There's also going to be an epic Demogorgon, which you will be able to, once you've met certain requirements, you'll be able to play whenever. But Demogorgon itself is only available periodically, and so people will gather up in Mantle Dareth for that. But by and large, I expect most players to still hang out in Protector's Enclave.
Oh, cool. Now, are we going to see a new class with this module?
No, we are not doing a new class just yet. We are still watching and evaluating with the Paladin, which came out with Module 6. So it's we don't feel that we're quite ready to launch a new class.
Well, I got to say, I'm loving the Paladin. It's my new main going through Xbox. I unfortunately let my Hunter Ranger gather dust as I went to the Paladin.
Sure, understandable.
Are you looking to do any class revamps or any big reworks of the classes going into this module?
No, not in this module. We're evaluating class performance as a whole in multiple arenas and multiple venues, and hopefully I can have some information. Hopefully it won't be too long before I can talk about that. But no, we're still in the evaluation phase right now. Okay.
What about any changes to mechanics? You mentioned the new Stronghold map, but are you changing the way in which campaigns work or PvP? You mentioned again the new zone, the new settings, but any big changes to any sort of core game mechanics?
Well, like I mentioned, the biggest thing is the variable rewards and
Right.
the variation in replay. Again, we want people to try and do better when they're playing the content. If you get to the point where, yeah, as long as you just sort of beat it, you get the best rewards, that's not very exciting. We want players to feel a sense of accomplishment, and so we're trying to work that in and see how that does. As far as the stronghold system, the new plot we're opening up is as a resource generating plot. So if there are smaller guilds or guilds that have been focusing on one particular direction, this new plot will give them a way to generate more resources to kind of catch up and move along a little bit.
Okay. Now, I gotta get back to what I was thinking with this. With the crafting changes that you've recently made with leadership. And big changes to Astral Diamonds. What sort of was the thinking behind making such a pretty drastic shift to the way in which leadership and Astral Diamonds in general work?
Yeah, so this is something I've tried to discuss pretty openly on forums and in blog posts. I know it's a really sensitive subject and something that players are very, very concerned about and very interested in. So here's a reality. There was an absurd number of leadership bots generating just an astronomical amount of Astral Diamonds. Astronomical Astral Diamonds, there you go. And, at first, it looked like if we removed leadership from Gateway, then we could solve this problem and we wouldn't have to remove Astral Diamonds from leadership in general. And at first, it had a positive effect. Unfortunately, the people who were botting on Gateway made a transition to bot in-game. And the only real solution, if we wanted any chance to correct and protect the Astral Diamond economy, was to pull AD as a source from leadership. It was not an easy decision. But if I can't share numbers, but if you could see what the botters were doing, it would blow your mind.
Right.
And, as a side note, Astral Diamonds were always meant to be something that you get for playing the game. Engage in the game, get this currency. It goes back to the concept of some people have time and some people have money, and not a lot of people have both in equal amounts. And so if you were able to play the game a lot, then you would generate this currency. If you weren't able to play as much, then we would give you access to purchase that currency from those who did have time but not a lot of money, which is what the Astral Diamond Exchange is, right? Give you a chance for play groups to swap. And with the amount of AD that was being generated from the bots, the people who were legitimately generating AD and looking to trade it with people, it was impossible. They couldn't do it, which was hurting the game as a whole. And so, and on top of that, because this is a currency that you're supposed to get for participating in the game, it probably wasn't a great choice originally to have it in something like Professions, where it's kind of on a timer in the background.
Right.
And certainly from the botting on Gateway, you could see players, they didn't even have to participate at all, and it was really having a very negative effect. Now, unfortunately, probably to our detriment, we could see the massive amount of AD in the economy, and so a lot of our Astral Diamond prices got out of whack. And so this caused people who were not botting to feel like the only way they could play Neverwinter legitimately was with a, quote, leadership army, which I hadn't even ever heard the phrase until we made these changes, and then that was all over the forums. Everyone said, well, leadership army, and I was like, wow, I don't think I knew that people had just assumed you had to play the game this way. And so that's not healthy for the game, and it's not, again, not indicative of what we think it should be. Leadership, AD from leadership, one of the first things we said, well, we want players to get this for playing the game, and right now the main sources from our data showed that they were getting it from hourly events and from daily quests. Well, the problem was, if you remember to get the daily quests, that was great, and if you happen to be one of the lucky few who were able to log on during that hourly event, you were fine. But most people were not in that boat. So we removed the daily quests, we removed the hourly events, and we said, just go play. Whenever you can, whenever you get the chance, just go play this queued content, and we're going to give you AD as though you had been doing all these other things before. across the board, this has increased the amount of AD that the average player has. But we want more. We want to get more AD in players. So right now we're looking at how to get AD into the hands of players who don't want to do queued content. And we're really close to having something for that. We're also reducing prices on things. Like I said, our prices were based on the amount of AD in the economy. Now that that's changing and we're evaluating as the economy stabilizes and as things level out, now that the botters don't have that easy in, we're evaluating our prices. We've recently done some price reductions, and we're going to keep looking at it. So I know it sounds a lot of information, but it was a really tough thing for us, but it was necessary for the health of the game.
And that being said, do you feel right now that leadership with that component removed from it is still a viable profession for those players who spent all that time leveling it up, getting it to max level for, Astral Diamonds was their goal. Now they don't have that. Is there still enough there that makes leadership a viable profession? Well,
leadership currently still does reward other things, XP, gold. There's some, you can get RP, refinement points out of it. Is it good enough? I don't know, probably not. We're evaluating it. We need to make sure that all the professions feel equally good and viable. And if truly the only reason to do leadership was for AD, which it really shouldn't have done, then we need to fix that. Okay.
Going back to the variable rewards that you were talking about, I remember that question I was trying to figure out. Some other games which have used a similar system where the better you do, the better reward that you get, have had a difficulty with getting to a certain point, the group deciding that, you know what, they're not going to hit that reward level that they want, and people starting to drop. This is sort of a reversal of the vote kick issues that Xbox Neverwinter had at launch. What are you doing on the development side to make sure that players don't hit that spot, say, nope, we're not good enough, we're gone?
Well, there's two things. Number one, as you mentioned, this is all relatively short time period engagement, 15 minutes for a skirmish. And the skirmishes have multiple phases. Each phase is judged individually. So if you're not doing great in phase one, stick with it. You might kill it in phase two.
Right.
So it's a little different than if you had a singular 15-minute thing or even a half hour or whatever other games have done, and you're like, man, we're 10 minutes into this. There's no way we're going to be able to recover. In this case, every 5 minutes, you are able to hit a checkpoint effectively. I mean, it's not exactly that, but effectively, where you're like, cool, we did well in that phase. Oh, we didn't do well in this phase. Oh, cool, we can nail it in this phase, and feel like each phase is meaningful and worth engaging in.
All right. It really sounds like there's a lot that's coming out with Neverwinter. What sort of time frame are we looking at for the release?
I don't think we've announced a release date yet, but soon.
It's just you and me, really. There's only several tens of thousands of people listening. That's all, right?
That's right. Yeah. Believe me, I wish I could tell you.
And are we looking at a similar, and again, roughly, is the goal, let's phrase it that way, is the goal to have a similar amount of time between the PC release and the Xbox release as you had between the Module 6 and then the big mega pack of modules for the Xbox?
I mean, it's, so my personal ultimate goal is to have them be the content be parity between PC and Xbox.
Yeah.
It's going to take us a little while to get there, and so our release schedules, they're not all exact. And again, I can't give you any dates, but the ultimate goal is to get us to the point where people playing on Xbox are playing the same kind of content they're playing on PC.
Right, but that's not the goal with this module, right?
No, Xbox, the next Xbox release will not be Module 8.
Okay. Yeah, that's, and that's one where I don't think you're ever going to have 100% satisfaction, because I'm sure that right now you have the Xbox people saying, or PC people saying that they're just beta testing for the Xbox people. But if you held things for certification for the Xbox, then you have PC people saying, why don't you just release it for us now? And I think you're just never going to have everyone happy with that one.
Well, it's funny for people who have never done game development for multiple platforms. They may not realize the wildly varying differences in lead times.
Right.
You know, if we make a PC update and it's critical, we can release it whenever we want. It's just us. We're in control of that. If we want to release something on the Xbox, there's a process. You have to get stuff to them. They need to test it. They need to approve it. They care very deeply about what is on their platform. They pay a lot of attention to it. And so you have to work within those boundaries. And so, yeah, it's there are a lot more restrictions than people, I think, realize.
Yeah, it's and that's something that I constantly hear from developers. You know, I heard that from Tryon with Defiance on PC and Xbox, and all sorts of other developers with Elder Scrolls on, et cetera, et cetera. It's such a more convoluted experience when you start to add consoles in there. Yep. Now, one last question for you. When you are done at the end of the day, you don't have any more testing to do, and I know as a former QA tester that's hard for you to detach yourself, but you're just going in to play for fun. What is your main class right now, and why is Oathbound Paladin your favorite?
Well, right now I'm playing an Oathbound Paladin.
Hey, look at that.
Well, so I was actually not on the Neverwinter team when the game launched, and right. I rolled the Guardian Fighter. That was what I always played. And so when a new type of tank came out, I had to give it a shot. So previously it was Guardian Fighter, but now it's Paladin.
Yeah, you know, I played it with Rob at PAX, and I just salivated at the experience. It was so much fun. It was exactly what I was looking for. So the minute that it came out on Xbox, I was there. Thanks, Scott, so much for taking time to chat with us about Neverwinter and about Underdark. It's going to be a lot of fun coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. Glad to do it again anytime.
Don't forget about your ults you need to cherish. Each and every little character you've got, no matter what level they're at. Don't forget about your ults you need to cherish. Each and every little character you've got, no matter what level they're at.
Thanks for watching the video, everybody. Don't forget to check out all the other podcasts at MMOreporter.com or by clicking on any of the links here. And please check out our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MMOreporter. Thanks, everyone, and see you in game.